Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another edition of Fictional Women Around the World, our sub segment. This one will have light spoilers for the show Only Murders in the Building.
Oh.
Yes. Which I just watched the most recent episode as we come out, which was episode 9 of season 4. Things are happening. But I'm not going to go too much into it. But there will be spoilers. So today we are talking about Mabel Mora. Mabel Mora is a character on the show Only Murders in the Building, played by Selena Gomez. She stars opposite Steve Martin and Martin Short in a podcast trio. The show is about them making a podcast, and you were actually the one who introduced it to me.
Yeah.
Because I was like looking for shows about podcasts. And this is one.
And it's quite funny.
This is one. Yes, it is. Essentially, the three live in this building in New York called the Arconia, and they bond over their love of true crime podcasts, especially a show that is very much making fun of Serial. This love and a murder in the building eventually leads them to starting their own podcast called Only Murders in the Building. Through the podcast, they get to the bottom of a death from Mabel's past and uncover other murderous activity. Enough for 5 seasons, because we're on season 4, but they have already announced the 5th season, which I'm very confident is going to be a continuation of this current season.
Oh, really? I haven't watched it recently, so I don't know exactly what's going on. But at this point, I'm like, y'all just need to, like y'all are have some bad luck. I would not be your friend or acquaintance, and I would not live there.
Well, no spoilers, but yes. But it is interesting because even though there's 4 seasons, it's actually the amount of time that passed isn't that much.
Mm-hmm.
So this is happening pretty quick. Like maybe you can say like, oh, okay, well, surely there won't be another murder. But alas. And yes, they were definitely poking fun at Serial, the NPR podcast that really kickstarted a lot of the podcast growth that we've seen, which is hosted by Cindy Canning, played by Tina Fey, who does appear in multiple seasons, even going so far as to offer Mabel a job. Okay. Mabel is usually described as a millennial who doesn't know what she wants. She lost her father as a child. They used to do puzzles together before he died of cancer while she was young. After he died, she watched Girl Cop to cope, which is a show that starred Ben Gilroy / Paul Rudd. When she was growing up, she would spend her summers with her rich aunt in the Arconia. And through this, she met a group of friends, and they went on to call themselves the Hardy Boys. One of the group was Tim Kono, the murder at the center of the first season. Another of the group's father was the superintendent in the building, and his son made a copy of his key so they could get into any apartment in the building. Their group was broken apart after one of them fell off the roof and died. One of them went to jail for it, and one of them, Tim Kono, claimed he saw what really happened but wouldn't say what it was. After a decade, Mabel's aunt asked her to come renovate her apartment and live there while she was doing it. Mabel is an artist and embarked on this journey to paint a mural of the Arconia and all the residents. This is where she met her podcast buds. At first, she hid her relationship with Tim and the Hardy Boys from them, but they eventually found her out. And they had a heated conversation about it and agreed not to lie to each other anymore. Eventually, they solved the case. Or did they? Did they? While celebrating their triumph, Mabel finds Bunny, apartment board president, stabbed in her apartment. She also stabs her with knitting needles because she believes she's being attacked, and is framed, earning the nickname Bloody Mabel. The second season revolves around them trying to solve Bunny's murder and exonerate themselves. Through this, she meets and briefly dates artist Alice, played by Cara Delevingne. The trio has some arguments. Charles is dating the person who killed Tim still. Mabel cut off a witness's finger when she was younger and didn't tell them about that. They seemingly get to the bottom of this murder as well. Mabel then goes to see Oliver's play, Death Razzle Dazzle. At first it's Death Rattle, and then it's Death Razzle Dazzle, which stars Ben Glenroy, who she's a fan of from that show. And he dies opening night, or did he? Mabel felt left out of the trio since she was the only one that wasn't in the play, and she was annoyed that they were ignoring the podcast and Ben's death because they believed it would interfere with the play. They didn't really care about Ben, and she did. This culminated in them breaking apart from each other and Mabel doing the podcast without them. Though she did bring in her new boyfriend, Taubert, who I have talked about before. She moved out of her aunt's apartment after it was done being renovated and it was sold, and in with one of the Hardy boys, Theo. The crew eventually came together to solve this murder. Or did they? Then, of course, another murder happened. It was someone close to the trio and involved with a movie getting made about their podcast. Mabel negotiated her life rights and started to get used to the title of podcast producer. Her character is played by Eva Longoria, who plays her as a much more assured person, a Mabel. This influenced Mabel's own decisions, and she started being more aggressive, I guess, based on Eva Longoria. She started squatting in the apartment where the murderer may have lived. And without spoiling it, this about brings us to where we are. Mm-hmm. So themes, when I think about this character, she's the one that actually seems to really care about not only the podcast, but the people involved. It's always sort of like Steve Martin and Martin Short doing their thing and her being like the adult in the room and saying, someone has died. We need to figure this out. That dynamic has slightly changed in the recent season because it was somebody actually close to them that died. So it's a little bit different, but she's always been the one that is driving this podcast, is trying to get to the bottom of it. She's definitely the best interviewer because the other two are extremely awkward. She's very adaptive in the interview style too. In the second season, she boxed with somebody she was interviewing. She's just as good at finding the way or the place that will get them in a place where they'll open up to her, which is interesting because she is a lone wolf. She said in this season to Eva Longoria, because all the actors are following the characters they're supposed to play. And she says to Eva Longoria, "Do you want to know about Mabel? Mabel works alone." So she's got that kind of very lone wolf vibe, but she's also a very empathetic person, as I said. She's very uncomfortable with attention. She had a kind of panic moment when she had to act in a recent episode. She also was learning ASL so she could better communicate with Theo, who's one of the Hardy boys. She is a millennial. They make jokes about that a lot. I do appreciate she isn't in touch with the youths. She is. They often describe her as an old soul. So it's funny when she knows how to work technology, but she's not in touch with the lingo or anything like that. And so it's funny when she gets thrown into situations where everyone expects her to know what to say, and she does not. This season, it has been a good arc seeing her kind of coming in her own of being oh, I'm a podcast producer, and trying to go after that and secure the money through contracts that she wants, and just telling people that, getting the confidence to tell people that. Also, there's a lot to say about her not having a love interest in this current season. She's had one every season, but this one, And they're almost always like, it just didn't quite work. It wasn't like bad. It just kind of felt shoehorned in almost. And it is pretty rare. I read an article about it. It's pretty rare for mainstream comedies that a character like her would not have a love interest. And there's also the contrast with Martin Short's character having a love interest. So like an older couple getting together versus Mabel, who just doesn't seem that interested in it.
So wait, in the show, is Meryl Streep and Martin Short together? Because I haven't seen this yet.
Spoilers. Yeah, they are.
That translated into real life. Okay, keep going.
Maybe. And Mabel's having a real moment of introspection about what she wants. And it's been fun to kind of see comedically through Eva Longoria or who have you, her coming to that realization. Also, she's bi. I kind of forgot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she's bi. Rare in TV also. Mm-hmm. She is certainly the adult. Another joke they make a lot in the show, and it is one of my things that I still get hung up on sometimes. It's like she's so young and they're so old. And like, it's a running joke. Mm-hmm. And it is funny, but also so many other women have been younger, like way younger. So sometimes I do like think about that. But she is the one that's like giving relationship advice to Martin Short, mm-hmm. who got a little paranoid on the Instagram. And so she had to talk him down. She is definitely the one with the tech, as I said. She's also got like great fashion. They make fun of her for it, but she's got some solid sweaters. And I was reading about like the color palette they chose for her and why they did, and it was really interesting. But it has been really fun to see the progression of her character and to get to see Selena Gomez get mm-hmm. to do a bit more with her, because she's kind of like deadpan most of the time. But she's definitely gotten more space to do stuff this season for sure. So that's been cool. And I am very excited to see what happens in the finale next week and in the next season, because I have come this close. I have a theory, and I have come this close to posting it on Reddit, and that says something because I don't like Reddit.
Wow, you are really invested. I didn't think you would be that invested.
I like guessing mysteries, and I just feel like I've got an idea that I haven't seen anyone else say. It's probably going to be not that at all. That's the fun part. But we'll see.
It makes it more fun. You know what I think about the age difference with them? Because they do it in such a wholesome way, as well as the fact that in real life, they're really like friends in mm-hmm. life. And the way you see them on the show, they really are in actuality. And I find that really endearing, especially mm-hmm. when we talk about Hollywood and shows like that doesn't give, not just like that, just shows in general that doesn't give much leeway and personality to older actors now, unless they're really legendary. And they are legendary. I know this. Mm-hmm. But like giving them like romantic plot lines and storylines is so unique that I love, instead of just being like, oh, they're old and elderly and sad and curmudgeon. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good curmudgeon. But I really like this aspect. I say this as a person who hasn't watched the last 2 seasons, but I did enjoy that.
Yeah, well, and the episode that came out today, I was thinking about it too, in terms of there's a really moving scene between Steve Martin and Martin Short, where they were talking about their friendship and how Steve Martin felt like, oh, now you're getting married. And I thought we were going to like grow old together. And I thought we were going to, but now I'm going to be the weird third wheel. Mm-mm. And I was just like, you don't really see that much either. Mm-mm. So I appreciate that a lot. But it is pretty funny. The reason Selena Gomez was like, wait, why, Eva Longoria, why did they cast you? And she's like, you're wondering why I'm so much older? It's because everyone thought it was creepy.
Oh, they actually say it? I wondered that. I was like, Eva Longoria, like she's about...
Yeah.
several, like at least a decade older than her. That's interesting. She's still gorgeous.
Allegedly, the creators, I think they've said they read the Reddit.
Do they? Oh, is that why you want to post on Reddit? And they see you and give you credit for the...
That is not it at all. I'd be horrified because it's one of those things where I'm like, this would be so cool if I was right, but I'm almost certainly not right. But it is a theory I haven't seen, and it would be cool. But let's just say, for everyone who's listening, they're definitely bringing back an idea, I think, from the second season. It's all gonna come together in the 5th season.
Interesting.
Yes, but we'll see. And listeners, if you have any theories you want to send, then send them. Because I'm the one that usually sees the listener mail first, so Samantha will be safe.
I won't be spoiled.
You won't be spoiled. Send those our way. And if you have any thoughts about this character, please let us know. You can email us at stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast, on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff One Never Told You. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff One Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.